If a real-life comic book villain derailed your road trip and threatened to wipe out your closest friends, what would you do? He's been out of the game for years, but don't let that fool you. The I-90 killer is still very much at the top of his game, and he's coming out of retirement for one last rampage before he hangs it up for good. Question is, will our heroes recognize his handiwork in time to hightail it back to Canada? Or will they ignore the constantly growing mountain of red flags and charge headlong into certain death? Gee, I wonder which it could be. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Slasherman in Random Acts of Violence. Todd is a writer, a comic book writer to be exact. However, he's currently having trouble with the whole putting words on the page part of the process. And what better way to channel the muse than by following in the footsteps of his main character? You see, the hero, as he puts it, of his world-renowned Slasherman series is none other than the mass-murdering maniac who butchered untold numbers of innocent people along the US Interstate 90 in real life. Now Todd, along with his girlfriend Kathy, producer Ezra, and assistant Aurora, are about to embark on a multi-day road trip down the very same stretch of American highway in hopes the frustrated author can regain enough of his mojo to finally put the legend to rest, at least until the reboot comes around to milk any and all remaining cash from the suffering others. Of course, that's assuming they make it past the first day, which is far easier said than done with Aurora's insanely reckless driving habits.
Stay right here. I'm in level. No.
I'm sorry, your ADHD assistant drifted into the oncoming lane, and it's somehow the other guy's fault you and your friends almost got death-proofed. Get out of here, dude. You're lucky he didn't feel like throwing his life away over a near miss, or else the four of you would probably be taking a guided tour of Ethan Hawke's basement tonight. Seriously, you know it's bad when the guy driving the windowless cargo van is a more well-adjusted human being than our protagonist. Oh, well, crisis averted, right? I'm sure it'll all be smooth sailing from here on out. And it totally is, right until Todd's disastrous interview with a local radio station that night. But a little gotcha journalism from the DJ becomes the least of his worries once they go to the phones. Evidently, the first caller did enough homework to name himself after one of the I-90's killer's first real-life victims, although the message itself is kind of hard to interpret.
Hello?
112-18. 112-18.
And the Lord said, touch grass. Yeah, that was kind of creepy and all, but given Todd's particular genre of focus, he probably gets a dozen calls like this a day. Besides, it's not like the guy threatened to cut his eyes out or anything. This is hardly something worth canceling the tour over, but it should serve as a reminder that there are a lot of weirdos out there. And given Todd sitting down at a known location and broadcasting live, all the ones listening now know where he is. It's probably too late to strap up on the off chance there's a gang of loyal fans outside waiting to drag him away in a burlap sack. But having known about this trip for a while, Todd and company should have prepared for the absolute worst. Unfortunately, being Canadian, even acquiring something as basic as mace would be somewhat difficult, but they could easily pick up some from any FFL or state licensed pharmacist upon crossing over into New York. In the meantime, we should get a couple high-powered flashlights in the 50,000 plus candela range, like the Mod Light PLH or OKW, something that'll really burn out the retinas in case we can't sorry ourselves out of a tense situation. Also, couldn't hurt to swing by a sporting goods store and snag a baseball bat and or machete while we're at it. After all, we're gonna be traveling through extremely remote parts of the state, where backup could be an hour away, assuming we could even reach it at all. So even a simple first aid kit would mean the difference between life and death. Not to mention the fact that this whole area served as a hunting grounds of an extremely prolific serial killer that was never caught. You know, the one whose hard work Todd spent years exploiting for financial gain. Sadly, the people who wind up needing this kind of stuff the most often don't keep it on hand, which is exactly the case for this merry band of losers out for a midnight joyride.
Hey, you cannot talk to me like that on my birthday. The car didn't just stop. Do I look like a car expert to you guys?
Well, you look like someone with a driver's license, so you should at least be able to tell if the engine's still running. Let's start with the basics. Does the car go vroom when you press on the dealie? I mean, even if it straight up died on them, that shouldn't have caused the brakes to lock up like that. I don't know. Car nerds, explain what we're looking at down in the comments. At any rate, I'll spare you the evaluation process and skip right to the part where the brain trust finds out they have a flat. Of course, not a single one of them actually actually knows how to change a tire. And since there's no cell service, they're pretty much hosed unless a good Samaritan pulls over to help. And wouldn't you know it, here comes one now. Yes, nothing says salvation quite like a jet black van rapidly flashing its headlights, especially one driven by a shadowy behemoth hiding his face behind a welding mask in the middle of the night. Luckily, the gang has enough rattling around upstairs to clock his suspicious behavior and climb back in their vehicle, but apparently he really wants to give them a hand. Wait, you didn't even lock the door? What the hell is wrong with you? Some roadside sicko freaks you out enough for you to scurry back to the minimal safety of your vehicle, and you don't even make the slightest effort to keep him out. It's a button. Sure, he probably could have broken through the window after a couple blows with the knife, but that could have easily bought the girls or even all three of us enough time to bail out and run for cover. I mean, sure, it might be scary looking, but the maniac's gonna have a pretty hard time tracking someone through the brush with that mask on. All that being said, the real benefit to hiding in the vehicle is mobility. If all that was really wrong with it was a blown out tire, we could have easily stomped on the gas and left him stabbing at the taillights. This will obviously hamper the SUV's speed and maneuverability to an extreme degree, especially on wet pavement. But absent any weapons or bulletproof glass, it would have been their best chance of making it out of here in one piece, even if Slasherman pursues in his van, which you absolutely know he would. Fact is, there's plenty of police chases that go on for miles at high rates of speed even after the suspect loses multiple tires. The car will be totally thrashed when it's all over, but we have far bigger problems right now. Besides, a huge shower of sparks rooster-tailing behind us as we flee another vehicle is bound to attract a lot of attention, and if we're lucky, we might catch the eye of a passing state trooper who can intervene and radio for help. Speaking of which, someone needs to be constantly dialing 911 while we're on the move. Even if the phone is showing no service, emergency calls automatically route through the nearest available cell tower, regardless of whether it's in your network or not. So we shouldn't assume help is out of reach just because we can't TikTok this nightmare. The next day, Todd and company are on their way to the next stop on their tour when police activity at the scene of the last night's mayhem slows them down to a crawl, and just in time for a tarp to blow over and reveal something I definitely cannot show you on YouTube. Yeah, it's kind of like if you took 3 human persons, disemboweled them, and then sat them upright back to back to form some sort of pyramid type thing. Actually, it's exactly like that. And while this abhorrent arrangement might seem awfully strange to the average person, to Todd and longtime fans of his comic, it's an all too familiar sight. Turns out the meat sculpture bears a striking resemblance to the so-called triptych crafted by the I-90 killer in an issue of Slasherman. However, Todd's not willing to accept the Roadkill is in any way related to the one portrayed in his comic. The way he sees it, it's just the work of some random crazy person being crazy and random, and absolutely wasn't spurred on by the fact that he publicly announced his presence in the area the same night it went down. Yeah, that's quite a coincidence. And then there's the fact that Todd's work clearly inspires others to embrace their inner psycho. Just look at this jacked up diorama Shermanator brought to the book signing. And that's not even the weirdest thing that happens here.
Yeah.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's extended warranty.
Who the f are you?
They just don't quit, do they? No, it's actually the creepy voice with another string of numbers. Only this time, it has a direct line to Todd, personally. But that's nowhere near as bad as having your palm slashed open by an unknown lunatic. Meanwhile, no one, including Todd, acts like that was a big deal at all. Sure, I suppose that's what he gets for answering his phone at a signing event, but still. You're all just gonna stand there while someone's walking around slicing people? Oh, and just wait until you hear Todd's response to the ordeal. Turns out he doesn't want the cops to get involved because he doesn't think they have anything to report. That's right, he's been harassed and potentially stabbed by the same mysterious stranger over the course of the last 2 days who may have also carried out a brutal triple homicide within a short drive of their current location. And Todd thinks there's simply nothing there that could possibly interest them. For Christ's sake, dude, if there's even a remote possibility the signing slicer had anything to do with the meat sculpture you passed by, you gotta tell someone. If not for the benefit of your fellow travelers, then at the very least to save your own skins. Fact is, for all we know, the killer followed us here from the bookstore and is currently waiting for an opportunity to strike, which is why regardless of what we do with the police, it's time to bag this trip and haul back across the border as soon as humanly possible. Not in the morning, right now. We can trade off drivers if fatigue is that much of an issue, just as long as we don't let Aurora back behind the wheel. After what almost happened yesterday, I wouldn't trust her to drive a nail. And even though no one else has taken the situation all that seriously, she's still the only one stupid enough to sit outside by herself in the middle of the night with a murderer on the loose. And guess what happens? Wow. Was it always this easy, or are people just getting dumber? Of course, because they never bothered to go to the authorities with everything they've been through leading up to this point, Todd and company are immediately made the primary suspects in Aurora's untimely decapitation. However, despite receiving a thorough dressing down from the investigators, they're ultimately cleared by the motel surveillance footage. Whew, that was a close one. At this rate, we might miss our next comic convention. Nah, I'm just kidding. Well, maybe. We never actually find out where they're headed right now. I mean, I know where I'd be going if I were them, but given what we've seen of their decision making so far, I'd say it's a 50-50. They're not actually turning back right now. Either way, it doesn't matter. Before long, Todd receives yet another phone call, only this time it's from a familiar face.
What? He called us from her phone.
Huh, I didn't think she'd get reception down there. So obviously, it's the killer. But despite already knowing more or less what he's going to say, Todd answers the phone for yet another string of digits seemingly corresponding to Bible passages, or so he thought. Suddenly, it occurs to him that the numbers actually pertain to the holy book of another religion, one of his own creation. Fortunately, they keep a box of the smut in the back seat just in case someone needs their day ruined. Sure enough, the numbers from the previous messages Todd received lead to the specific page of the issue in which similar kills were displayed. And that means this latest batch involves the family station wagon right in front of them. Only problem is, how do we warn these people without looking like a pack of raving lunatics? We could try and stage a fender bender to get them to pull over, but then we'd all be even easier targets for the Slasherman if his last message is to be believed. And considering he's 2 for 2 right now, it probably is. Plus, while the cops might have a reason to listen to us considering we have information related to the ongoing investigations, literally nothing we say to these people will make sense. Sad to say, I think we just keep our heads on a swivel and try not to do anything that'll make us both crash. I mean, just because the family in the wagon is reminiscent of the one in the comic doesn't mean they're the only ones on the road. He might be targeting another group miles away from us like the first 3.
Oh my God, oh my God! 911 call!
Okay, or not. Then again, it shouldn't have even mattered because a mysterious vehicle swerving to block both lanes of traffic should have been all the warning these people needed to whip a UE and GTFO. Seriously, haven't you people ever watched an action movie before? That right there is the universal sign for I'm about to you up. Not only that, but the driver had plenty of room to maneuver. There was literally no reason for them to just sit there and await their executions like that, especially once the silhouette of his pistol became clearly visible as far back as the car behind them. As for Team Todd, if you're not planning on risking a gunshot and ramming this mofo, then you 100% need to shake the scene as well. After all, what's stopping him from opening up on us as soon as he's done? Like right now. And here I thought Kathy's leading lady plot armor would see her through this mess. Oh, no, never mind. It was Ezra that got shot just there. Wait, then how did she wind up swerving off the road like that? Backseat driving? All you had to do was keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise until the flashes stopped. God only knows what's gonna happen to us now. Well, the good news is Slasherman didn't immediately double tap us each in the face upon reaching the scene. The bad news is whatever he's got in store for us back at his secret lair is likely worse in every regard. In that case, we need to be prepared to fight for our lives the second those doors come open. And that starts with getting our handcuffs around to the front by rolling onto our back and passing them under our legs. That can be fairly difficult if not impossible depending on your build, but it may very well be the only way we'll have a chance at overpowering him, especially if he still has his handgun out. Now, even if he's empty-handed, the dude is still massive, so it'll take 100% out of both of us to even have a chance at pulling this off. And just to make matters worse, it seems Kathy's not in a good place right now.
Listen to me.
We're not okay.
He is going to kill us. This is it. It's over.
Guess she must be French-Canadian. Fortunately, Todd is able to talk her down before she's too far gone. All they need now is a plan, and there's pretty much only one I can see working. When he opens the doors, Todd will throw his weight into the Slasherman to try and knock him down, at which point Kathy will move in to stomp him out, or at the very least, put all her weight on the arm wielding the pistol while her other half fights to regain his footing. Is it a slam dunk? Absolutely not. We should have taken off before allowing ourselves to be put in this situation in the first place, but right now, this is our only chance to get out of here alive, so we can't afford to fail. And with our hands cuffed behind our backs, that probably means going full Rick Grimes on this the second his neck is exposed. Here's hoping they like their steak rare. Ultimately, our heroes are able to put phase 1 into action effectively, but instead of remaining committed to violence, Todd urges Kathy to make a break for it. God! Rendering their entire plan completely pointless for 2 reasons. Number 1 being, you can't outrun a bullet. However, even if he weren't armed, there's no way she could possibly outrun him restrained like that, which is why this happens.
I won't scream for you. I'm not scared of you. You!
Don't worry, I'm sure your boyfriend will do plenty of screaming for the both of you once he sees what the Slasherman's planning next. Getting back to Todd, he suddenly awakens in the wrecking yard to find himself uncuffed. It seems the killer wanted him to find something, having left him with a final string of numbers before going after Kathy. However, upon finding his manuscript for the planned final issue among the maniac's possessions, he realizes that the numbers correspond to a page that hasn't been written yet, and that's probably bad. Think about it. If this whole time the dude was working within the confines of Todd's imagination, I shudder to think what he might come up with when left to his own devices. I mean, just look at this dump. You couldn't paint pictures of this guy sees in his head. And speaking of pictures, Todd finds a crudely drawn image of the Slasherman mid-slaying, and suddenly, his obsession with the psycho all becomes clear. It turns out, his mother was made one of the I-90 killer's first victims, something he witnessed firsthand during a nightmarish Christmas Eve home invasion when he was little. Young Todd immortalized the episode in this crayon drawing, and apparently, the murderer was so impressed with the likeness, he held on to it for all these years. It's only through this traumatic introspection that Todd suddenly realizes where Kathy was likely taken, and it just so happens to be his old family home located a short distance away. Of course, with the cops literally within line of sight, it might not be the worst idea in the world to hang tight a few seconds and share this revelation with someone a bit more heavily armed. Fact is, the Slasherman's van is probably rolling probable cause at this point, so a warrant wouldn't be necessary if he's parked out front. Besides, the big man's got a pretty solid track record of kicking, and it's anyone's guess as to whether Todd ever even threw a punch before today. Then again, the cops probably wouldn't let us do the kind of things to this guy that we definitely want to do after everything he's put us through, and that's no fun at all. In that case, we'll want to load up on as many weapons as we can find in the murder lair and head straight over. Even a length of chain is still better than nothing. Of course, I'd normally propose a detour through the nearest Cabela's to snag a crossbow and a handful of broadheads, maybe even a hand axe or two, but we probably don't have that kind of time if we want any hope of seeing Kathy alive again. And even then, I have my doubts. Still, Todd could have at least stopped to pick up a rock or something. Jesus, what do you think? He's gonna let you walk in and invite you to stab him to death with his own knife before you whisk away your beloved like a crappy comic book? Keep dreaming, Stanley. The fact he's got human intestines hanging off the Christmas wreath suggests we're in for some Terrifier level carnage. And on that note, I'm seriously gonna have to blur like 3/4 of the entire screen for this next part, because the main event in this place is straight up gratuitous. Like, picture what zombies would put out on their table for Thanksgiving dinner. That's what we're dealing with here. And it looks like Kathy brought the sausage casings. Well, looks like it's Sad Christmas Part 2. Only this time he's old enough to actually do something about it. And here's his chance. Boy, I bet you're wishing you stopped to grab a weapon now that you're staring this monster dead in the eyes. However, it seems the Slasherman isn't interested in pursuing some dramatic final showdown between good and evil, unless you count talking him to death. I'll spare you the BS and whittle it down to the gems.
I've been reading your comic since the beginning. Here it is, our final issue. I inspired you. Now you've inspired me. Kill me so the world can see our ending.
I'm sorry, what? He actually wants us to kill him? Well, Okay, all he had to do was ask. Ugh, except here comes the part where Todd's all like, no, I won't perpetuate the cycle of violence, cause I'm not like you and blah blah blah. I swear to God, if he doesn't straight up slot this freak show, I'm rewriting the ending to include a wood chipper. Oh, no, he actually did it. Although, seriously, dude, you could have at least taken your time with it. This guy murdered 3 of your closest relations, including the love of your life, and you're gonna send him off with 2 stabs in a throat slash? Child's play. Like, how many opportunities are you going to get to carve someone up guilt-free while they're literally asking for it? Such a wasted opportunity. And with that, Todd sets fire to his family home along with everything in it. And since we don't see him leave, I guess we can assume he plans on depriving his sicko fans of the true ending they crave, and basically George R.R. Martining their beloved franchise. Good riddance, I say. In the end, all our main characters died. However, all their deaths could have been easily avoided had Todd read the writing on the wall after getting stabbed at a comic book signing and skirting back up to the frozen hostile wasteland that he called home. For that reason, I think random acts of violence was beaten. Moral of the story, learn how to change a tire.